Welcome to East Coast Believers Church, Lake Nona. Thank you for joining us today. We would like to personally invite you to come visit us on a Sunday morning. We're at 12253 Lake Nona Gateway Road, inside Village Park Elementary. For more information on time and locations, please visit our website at www.eastcoastbelievers.org. Today, Pastor Rich continues the series, Push, Prayers That Move Mountains. Please stay with us all the way through the end of the message for some important announcements. Now, here's Pastor Rich.
Our last message in our series that we've called Push, which is pray until something happens. And we are talking about prayers that move mountains. And today we're going to end this series with a message on the power of persistence in prayer. How many of you guys are ready to learn from the Word of God today? Amen. Listen, if you want to pray prayers that move mountains, it's going to require, if you want to pray prayers that move mountains, it is going to require persistence. It is going to require persistence. What is persistence? What do I mean by persistence? See, because sometimes you ever just hear somebody talking and they use a big word, and you don't really know the definition. No, I'm the only one. I'm the only one that's ever fronted someone use a word, and you're like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, in the rectory. Sure it is. Yeah, I know what that is. Nobody knows what a rectory is. What is that? See, you don't even know now. I don't know what a rectory is, quite frankly. Persistence. What is persistence? Persistence is the unwavering commitment to continue striving toward a goal, a vision, a task, despite, ready? Obstacles, setbacks, opposition, or slow progress. Anybody ever experienced any of that in their lives? Of course you have. It is the ability to endure, adapt, and push forward when circumstances become difficult. Has anybody in the house ever faced difficult circumstances that you had to pray to and pray through? And that's what this message is about today. And what I want you to see is that every time we are in the face of those obstacles, those setbacks, that opposition, that slow progress, every time we face that, what I want you to see is there's always going to be a strong pull and a strong temptation to follow the feeling of discouragement, to follow the feeling of discouragement. Because discouragement, it sits in our flesh. Discouragement sits in our body and it sits in our mind. And every time we come up against a problem that just doesn't seem to be moving, every time we come up against a need that doesn't seem to be getting answered, every time we experience a setback in life, how frustrating is that? When you have slowly made some progress, right? Anybody in here ever did keto? And you lost that 10 pounds, and then bread happened, right? You're like, oh, it's been 17 days. I suppose I could have just a piece of bread. Nobody can have a piece of bread. A piece of bread turns into a half a thing of butter and a whole loaf, and we all know it. And it is so good. And then the next thing you realize, I just gained 5 pounds back. How did I gain 5 pounds? I had a segment of bread. I looked at a Ritz cracker. A piece of fruit fell in my mouth. Setback. Right? Isn't it frustrating to get set back? What about when you save some money? Isn't that when your dog gets sick? Right? You save $1,000, next thing you know, your dog's like, bleh. You're like, fool, you better be healed or die, because I am not losing this money. Right? Or you finally save some money, you pay a credit card off, and then your engine starts going. You start rebuking the engine. You start turning up the radio. Oh, did you fix your engine? No, I just got a louder radio. Right? And setbacks are frustrating, and there is a temptation in the setback for discouragement. There's a temptation in the setback for us to get discouraged. And when we get discouraged, what happens is we stop praying. We stop seeking and we stop pushing in our prayer life with God, and we lose the momentum and the power that comes with persistence. What I want you to know is that persistence in prayer will counteract and defeat discouragement in your life. Persistence in prayer will counteract and defeat that feeling of setback and discouragement in your life. When we put our faith and trust that God has promised to hear, and not just hear, but respond to our voice when we call on him, it's easier to keep persisting in prayer. And this is what I want you to see. In Luke 18:1, if you can open up with me to that verse. Luke 18:1. And Jesus is getting ready he's giving a lesson. He's about to tell a teaching story. And so Jesus is telling this parable. He's making up this story, and he creates some characters in here in order for us to see the lesson that he's trying to teach. And so he says this, then he, Jesus, spoke a parable to them. Ready? Why? Why did he speak a parable to them? What did he want them to know? Ready? That men always ought to pray and not lose heart. That men ought to always pray and not lose heart. This is the point of the story, is that he's already has the expectation of prayer, but what he's trying to get them to see is when you're persisting in prayer, what I don't want you to do is lose heart. What does he mean by that? That phrase, lose heart, comes from a Greek word. It's ekakeo. Why am I teaching you Greek? Because it's important for us to unpack the understanding of the Word of God. Because we hear the phrase lose heart, and it just sounds pretty. It just sounds like something you put in a greeting card. Don't lose heart, my friend. Don't lose it. But what does it really mean? Ekakeo has a specific definition. And what ekakeo means is to be discouraged, to give up, to grow weary, to become faint-hearted, or lose motivation in the face of difficulty. So when we read in English that men ought to always pray and not lose heart, what Jesus is saying is that men ought to always pray and not ekakeo, not give up, not get discouraged, not grow weary, not become faint-hearted while you're praying, while you're facing the setback, while you're facing the obstacle that you're trying to pray through. Ekakeo is a word that's used to describe when you're feeling drained of strength, when you lose the motivation you once had. Boy, motivation's like a drug. You ever catch a hit of motivation, like on a Tuesday? You know what I'm saying? And you're like, I'm about to lose weight. I'm signing up for a small group. I'm getting my life back on track, Jesus. And then you know what happens? Wednesday waits for you to come out the house, right? Wednesday sees the garage door come up. He's like, yeah, come on out, son. And then when you come out, you're like, yeah! Motivation gone. Motivation falling out like sonic rings. That was only for those that got it. If you didn't get it, you're missing out. You're missing out. Like if you don't sign up for small groups, you're missing out. You can lose motivation. What I'm getting at is when you lack perseverance due to hardships, there's that fleshly temptation. See, motivation only works in the flesh. It works in the flesh, right? Persistence, that endurance that comes from persistence, that comes from the Spirit. That comes from a deeper place. Motivation, that's that thing like, yeah, I feel good. I'm going to go for it. Yeah, I'm feeling motivated. I'm going to do this. But motivation will come and go. And there's a temptation when we lose that motivation. And what Jesus is saying is, listen, when you pray, I'm asking you, keep praying. Keep praying till something moves. Keep praying until something happens. Don't stop just because you don't feel like something's happening. Just because you don't see something happening on your timeline doesn't mean this is the time to stop praying. In fact, Jesus is saying this is when you press in harder. This is when you press in more. And all the prayer warriors said, Amen. We all face this. We've all faced the temptation to give in to discouragement more than once in our life, and God knows it because God knows us, and he loves us so much that Jesus did this whole teaching on the idea of not losing our strength and not losing our endurance. So he goes on and he says this, verse 2, Luke 2. There was in a certain city a judge who did not fear God or regard man. Now there was a widow in that city, and she came to him, the judge, and said this, ready? Get justice for me from my adversary. So she goes to this judge like we would go to God, and she's saying, hey, someone's taking advantage of me. Hey, someone got over on me, and I need justice. Get justice for me from my adversary. You ever had the devil steal something from you? You ever had the enemy take something from you? You ever had the enemy try to divide you? You ever had the enemy rob you? I have. And I've gone to God and said, I want justice. I want justice, Lord. This isn't right. I serve you. I worship you. There should be no reason that this keeps happening in my life. Lord, I want justice from my adversary. But this woman in this story, what Jesus is saying is this woman, her only outlet, everybody say only outlet for justice was this unjust judge. And what does it say about this woman? That she was a widow. And Jesus intentionally, in crafting this teaching story and in crafting this parable, he used the widow on purpose. He didn't just be like, she's a widow. He used a widow because in that culture and in that time, a woman without a husband had no legal standing. She had no legal standing. In fact, widows were often people that were the most taken advantage of by evil people. They were the easiest to take advantage of because they had very slim windows of recourse. They had very few paths of recourse. They were easy to commit evil acts against and take advantage of. They had no social power. They had no influence with the court system. They owned no land. They had no wealth. And Jesus uses the widow in this parable to speak to us when we are the ones who are weak and disadvantaged. When we are the ones who are up against insurmountable odds like this widow is. When we're the ones that are independent, in need of any natural means to get what we need. And the parable goes on and it says this in verse 4, and he would not for a while. So she's going to him going, I need justice. I need you to avenge me from my adversary. And this judge is like, woman, I got other stuff to do. And for a while, he was able to put her off. You ever had someone bug you? And you just keep putting them off for a little bit? No, I'll call you next week. I'll call you next month. And you're just hoping, man, I hope they stop calling me. And he would not for a while. He put her off. He pushed her to the side. Ready? Listen. But afterward what? After this widow kept persisting. I want justice. I want you to avenge me against my adversary. She asked. Then she went to his crib. Hey, I see you in there. I know you're in there. I seen you. You ever seen someone try to ditch you? You go to their crib and they're like, anybody ever do it? Yeah, you have. Yeah, you did. Don't front. Everybody in here just got quiet. Everybody has not answered the door pretending like they weren't home. Like this around the corner. You laughing because you're guilty. That's a guilty laugh. I know a guilty laugh. I am guilty as could be, boy. Once I dove on the floor, on the ground, underneath a picture window, because I didn't want to answer the door for a solicitor. And all I had to do was go, man, get away from my door. I just didn't want to be bothered. I was cozy. It was cold. I didn't want to crack that door open. And that's this lady, hey. And finally, he's like, I got enough of this lady. Listen, you got to hear me on this. But afterward, he said, ready? Oh, man. He said within himself. Because, see, he's musing on this. He's musing on this lady's persistence. He's musing on the fact that she asked him in public, in the courthouse. Then she saw him at Publix. And she was like, hey, I know you see. Hey, you ain't gluten-free. Don't pretend you reading ingredients. And then she went to his crib, right? She just kept persisting. Finally, he says this in verse 4, though I do not fear God, nor regard man. Basically, he's saying, I don't care about nothing. I care about me. I'm worried about me. Hey, I'll get you justice if you can slip me a little something on the side. I need my tires rotated, so, I might be able to work something out. I know, there's nobody in government or politics that would ever do anything like that, but I've heard it happens. Yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. He's like, I gotta do something for this lady because she is persistent. I'm gonna give her the justice. I'm gonna avenge this woman because she won't stop, can't stop, won't stop. Then the Lord said, I love this. I just picture Jesus standing there teaching, and he's doing the callback. He goes, hear what the unjust judge said. Now he's saying, remember what I just said about the unjust judge? Let's go back, because Jesus said, hear what the unjust said. He just said it. Now he's saying, hear what the man said. Yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she wearies me. You know what he's saying? This lady don't stop. This lady don't quit. And if she don't stop, I got to do something. Now, what Jesus is getting ready to do, though, is he's getting ready to do a compare and contrast. Ready? Watch. Hear what the unjust judge said. And now he's saying, hey, this dude's a wicked heathen. This dude don't care about nobody. And this lady's persistence moved this wicked, unjust man to take a vengeance for her on her behalf who couldn't do anything for him. If he's wicked and unjust and doesn't care about people, and this woman's persistence moved this man, this wicked, horrible, uncaring, selfish man. Ready? And shall not God avenge his own elect who cry day and night to him, though he bears long with them? And I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, the Son of Man comes. And then he asks this question: when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on the earth? In Jesus' story, the widow is persistent. The judge is unjust. And he is comparing and contrasting this wicked, unjust judge with a righteous and just, caring, loving God. That judge didn't care about that widow. He cared about his own peace. God doesn't care about his own peace. He cares about your peace. God cares about eagerly speaking to you about you. God cares about you, so your persistence really is a testimony to your faith. You're not going to weary God. God's not going, oh my goodness. Oh, it's that pastor again. God's not doing that. What God's doing is, son, I heard you and I love you and I'm going to answer your prayers. Daughter, I heard you and I love you and I'm going to answer your prayers. But there's so many things that you can't see or know or understand that if I answer this right away the way you think I should answer it, it's not going to work out the way you want. There's some things that aren't in place yet. If you trust me, keep asking because it's coming. The answer's coming. The blessing is coming. But you got to trust that God's timing is always perfect and your timing is always limited. Our knowledge and understanding of what God should do, when, why, and how is all wrapped up in this 3 pounds of gray matter. And I don't know about you, but apparently I've not got it all figured out yet. Anybody else? I learned that pretty fast. Jesus uses this woman in the parable to speak to us when we're the ones that are weak, when we're the ones that are dependent, when we're the ones that are at a disadvantage. But he's contrasting the judge with the Father that loves you and cares about you. And what I want you to see today is that the only thing this widow had, the only recourse this widow had was her persistence. That's all she had. And what I want you to know and understand is this. Sometimes our only weapon is persistence in prayer. Sometimes that's the only weapon you got, is to just keep coming to God and trusting that when you pray, he hears you, that when you talk, he's listening, that when you speak, he is responding. But it may not come when you want it to come, and it may not come in the package you hope it comes in. Matthew 26:41. Jesus is encouraging his disciples, and he says this. Jesus is in the garden getting ready to be crucified in just a few hours, and he brings his disciples with him, and he's like, listen, I need you guys to pray with me because some bad stuff's about to happen, and you ain't ready. So I want you to pray. Why? So you can build up your strength, so you can build up your spiritual endurance. He says this, watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. Temptation to what? The temptation to quit. Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. Why? Because the spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak. And persistence in prayer is a spiritual tool that we can use to counteract against the flesh when the flesh becomes weak, when the setback becomes further, when the obstacle seems like it's bigger, and we feel like maybe God isn't listening. Luke 11:5-10, ready? Jesus keeps teaching. He's going on later, and he says, and he said to them, which of you shall have a friend and go to him at midnight and say to him, friend, oh, this guy must have been on keto and got fiending. Friend, lend me 3 loaves. Speaking of bread. Friend, lend me 3 loaves. For a friend of mine has come to me on his journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he will answer from within. See, that dude should have ducked under his window. He should have learned. He should have dipped like all y'all do. And the guy goes, I love this. And he says from within the house, don't trouble me. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give to you. I picture him being whiny. You know what I mean? I say to you, though he will not rise and give to him because he is his friend, yet, you got to hear me, look, they're still friends. But he ain't moved by the first, hey man, my boy's coming over, you got some bread? He's not moved by that. Even though they're friends, what he's moved by. You ever knock like this when you know someone's home? You ever get locked out of the house? Ready? Look at my face. Come on, because we've all done this. Ready? You know your whole family's inside. Ready? I need my keys. And then one of your daughters finally gets up. And gets to the door. Not because she cared that you left your keys out. She loves you. But she came because you kept knocking. You were persistent. And this guy here, I say to you, though he will not rise to give to him because he is his friend, yet because he is persistent, he will rise and give to him as many as he needs. Just get away from my door. So I say to you, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open. For everyone who asks will receive, everyone who seeks finds, and everyone who knocks, it will be open. Ask, seek, knock. That's persistence. And if you're willing to go a little bit deeper here, what I want you to understand is when Jesus is using this, we see ask, seek, knock. Like those are like one-time events. But what Jesus is saying here is that this is all you need to know. The present imperative tense of this verb is a tense about continuation, ongoing action, which is just a fancy way of telling you that Jesus isn't saying ask once. He's saying keep asking and it will be given. He's not saying seek once. He's saying keep seeking and you will find. And he's not saying knock one time. He's saying keep knocking. And the door will be open to you because prayer isn't just a one-time passive event. Prayer requires persistence because delays are never denials. God's delays are not a denial. The delay might be there to help you. The delay might be there because there's some stuff going on in the spirit that you don't know anything about. We're going to wrap this up, but this is what I want you to see. The delay isn't God saying no. The delay could be something happening in the unseen realm that we don't know anything about. The delay might be because the enemy's trying to hold up something God has for you. And the persistence in the prayer is keeping you pressing. The persistence in the prayer is keeping you locked into God. The persistence of the prayer is Jesus finding faith in your house. When Jesus said, when the Son of Man returns, will he even find faith? What I'm asking you, when you pray, is Jesus going to find faith in your house? I don't know what the need is. I don't know what you got going on in life. We all got things that we need God to bless us with, to help us grow through, to help us go through. But what I'm telling you is, it's the persistence in your prayer life that allows God to say, I'm so glad you stayed here waiting because I had an answer for you. See, in the book of Daniel, the prophet Daniel, he says, I started praying because I needed an answer to something, and I prayed 21 days, and it wasn't until after the 21 days that an angel appeared to me and said, Daniel, you don't understand. I'm so glad you waited this long because it was the day you started asking. The day you prayed, the Lord responded to your words, and he sent me. But when he sent me, there was a prince, a demonic force, the prince of Persia, that was sent against me to stop me from speaking to you. So for 21 days, we warred in the spirit. For 21 days. Do you know that sometimes your prayer life is you going to war in the spirit for your child? Sometimes that 21 days of you praying persistently is God saying, I got financial blessings for you. I've got healings for you. I've got growth for you. I've got answers for you. Some of us have been seeking jobs forever, overqualified. No reason we shouldn't get hired. Look, here, when me and Pastor Allison first moved here, we knew two people. We had two friends. And I figured I'll get a job. I was an electrician. Was, past tense, don't ever ask me again. And I figured I'm a journeyman electrician. I'll get a job anywhere in Florida. The national bird is a crane. You don't see nothing in Florida but cranes in the sky. They're building everything. There ain't no way I can't get a job. I'm overqualified to be an electrician anywhere in Florida. And I couldn't get a job. I would apply and not hear anything. And I didn't understand, like, my resume has got to be through the roof. Why, Lord? Because we kind of need money. Like, you told us to come here. Next thing I know, I kept praying. I kept saying, Lord, I know you have something. I just don't know what it is yet. And God opened a door. You got to hear this. God opened a door for me to go be an electrician at Campus Crusade for Christ International, 6 miles from my house. Not only was I able to do the electrical work that God gifted me to be able to do, I was able to do it for an international ministry that strived in excellence, where I got to meet and be around other believers. I got to meet, dang it. I got to meet my friend Robert in the back, whose whole family's here now. Even though he worked with me, he still lets me be his pastor. Not only did I get a partner in ministry, I got a friend for life whose whole family serves here, who invited a couple that now is going here and is going through our grow classes, is getting ready to get on a team. Do you understand that God was saying, son, I know you're overqualified for those jobs, but I don't want you to go to those jobs because I got people for you to meet, and it's going to take some time until they're ready to open up the job. But see, I didn't know that. And the only thing I did know is that God called me here, God has a job for me, and he's going to open a door for me. It was the persistence that caused me not to get discouraged. It was the persistence that gave me spiritual endurance. And what I'm telling you is, I don't know what your issue is. I don't know what you got going on. But I'm telling you right now, don't quit, because God is not an unjust judge, and he has something for you. He has an answer for you, and you have to keep pushing forward. I don't know what the answer is, but God does. You don't know what the answer is, but God does. Don't quit. Don't quit. Persist in your prayer life.
We hope you enjoyed our service today. If you made a decision for Jesus, we want to connect with you. Please text EC Saved to 94,000, and we'll get you some information on your exciting next steps with Jesus. We'd also like you to get involved here at East Coast Believers Lake Nona. Please visit us on a Sunday morning at 12253 Lake Nona Gateway Road inside Village Park Elementary. Please check the website www.eastcoastbelievers.org for more information on times. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome home.